Welcome, my political friends of the interwebs. Before I start this, to the YouTube political censors, or I should say conservative political censors, this is a Word document. It's on my computer. I own it. I created it, and it is now part of the public domain as far as I'm concerned. Anybody can copy this. All right. And for those, I got a lot of messages from people asking me what the last video was about when I was banging on about the whole YouTube censorship thing. I have been screwed on a couple of videos recently. A couple of them I posted and then they just took down. Apparently they were considered hate speech. You know how they roll, you know. And they've denied me a lot of things. Like I have not been able to monetize certain political videos. I mean, just a lot of what I consider bullshit from the YouTube censors, and I see this, and that they, well, you know, I don't even want this to be about this, because I could make a whole video about this. I want to talk about Jimmy Carter. I want to talk about the peanut farmer from Georgia, who just won't go away. Okay. Here's the funny thing. Okay, I'm going to read this to you. Former President Jimmy Carter won't be attending the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, but he'll address the gathering by videotape. But this is kind of interesting. A couple of thoughts here. Jimmy Carter is famous for running off the mouth. If you've followed my political vlogs for any length of time, you've been made aware that I believe in my heart that President Carter suffers from some form of dementia or possibly Alzheimer's or something like that. He is of serious advanced age, by the way. Of course, most of you are aware of that. And I've found it to be sad that the people who cared about him weren't, or well, maybe he doesn't have anybody who cares about him. I don't really know, but I found it sad that they would not remove him from the public stage, much the way Ronald Reagan's loved ones did for him, not to him, but for him. Because when you start to go down that road, and I don't know if anybody that I'm speaking to has ever known somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, but they become a completely different person and are not the same person that they were over the years. So anyway, it's a horrible, horrible thing. But when I've seen some of the things that President Carter has done over the years, especially over the last, say, 10 years, I really do believe that he has that problem, and it's really sad to me. Now, not that he was a great president and no longer a great president, but he was a horrible president, and, you know, it is what it is. I wish he would have just stopped with the whole Habitat for Humanity thing, which was really a great thing to do. But unfortunately, he went from that to jumping onto the world's political stage. And I'll touch on that in a couple minutes. So anyway, apparently he's not going to go to the convention. He's submitting a videotape, which I think is kind of interesting. Let me read you his statement. He says, Rosalynn and I regret that we will be unable to be at the Democratic convention this year in Charlotte. However, we remain steadfast in our support for President Obama and the progress he will make in the next 4 years, Carter said in a statement released by the Democratic convention. A couple of things about this. One, I kind of find it interesting because it wasn't all that long ago that Carter actually slipped up and said that he'd be okay with Mitt Romney being president, you know, which that in itself should tell you the man's got dementia, because it just wouldn't happen, okay? It just wouldn't happen. But I find it interesting because I think it was important for the Democrats, or the Democratic Party, the DNC, to have him speak, but yet you can't have somebody like that, you can't give him a live mic, okay? Because God only knows what's going to come flying out of his mouth. So I'm sure that they gave him a small, short script to read, and that's going to be his statement. He kind of, they kind of felt like he needed to do that. That's the only thing I can think of, because you know what? It's not like he's not capable of traveling, because usually he's down in Venezuela or in Cuba hobnobbing with, third world dictators and bad-mouthing his country, you know. So, I mean, if he could fly down and hang out with Sean Penn and Hugo Chavez, I'm sure he could make it to Charlotte. You know, it's not that far away from Georgia. So anyway, I just find it kind of intriguing to me. Intriguing to me. And here's a statement by him that says, Carter, who has spent his post-White House years devoted to humanitarian efforts, will offer unique insights on Obama as a global leader on Tuesday, September 4th, according to the statement. Oh yes, Obama, the global leader. How do you, let me know in the comment section, how do you feel he is as a global leader? Because, I remember, by the way, and this kills me. God, it kills me. I remember when he was running 4 years ago. And I remember the rhetoric that was coming out of the left-wing media, along with a lot of liberals, private citizen liberals, who were saying that, the whole world would love us. They would just, if we could just get Obama as our president, the world would love us. How's that working out for everybody? Does the world love us now? If anything, the world, first of all, the world no longer loves us, but they also they no longer respect us or fear us or whatever you want to call it. Now we're just their bitch. Obama has turned us into the world's bitch. They don't love us. They don't respect us. And I don't think that's working out very well for us. I mean, it sickens me. And it really does. It sickens me. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I just find it kind of interesting. When they say things like Carter, who has spent, his post-White House years devoted to humanitarian efforts. In all honesty, the Habitat for Humanity was a good deal. I think that went a long way to rehabilitate his image, at least in my eyes. However, once he decided to use that as a trampoline, because you got to remember, listen, for those of you who don't know, maybe you're too young to remember, but listen, Carter was considered such a freaking failure that it was a complete embarrassment to the Democratic Party. I mean, he was bad. Google misery index. I was just old enough during his presidency to remember, which, by the way, is why I will always have enormous respect for Ronald Reagan, because you had to live in there, you had to be around during that time period to know how miserable we were as a country, how miserable the economy was, how, pissant country like Iran, just completely disrespected us, went and took over our embassy, took all the embassy workers and Marines hostage, and thumbed our nose at us. And it was a bad time for America. It was a bad time. You just felt beat. You just felt beat. And then Ronald Reagan showed up on his white horse, and I'll tell you what, it changed everything. Everything. That's why I have such a difficult time with Obama blaming Bush. Because I can't remember one single time where Ronald Reagan said, you know what, I can't turn this around, this isn't my fault, I didn't put the car in the ditch, Jimmy Carter did. Jimmy Carter put it's the policies of their policies did this to us, I can't. No, didn't do any of that. Whining and sniveling and bitching like a little girl. Didn't do any of that. What Ronald Reagan did was take the bull by the horns and get it done. Get it done. And see, that's the thing. So when I look at Obama, and I still see it's not as prevalent as it was 4 years ago, but I still see this Messiah worship. I mean, the hardcore lefties, and actually, what? I take that back. It's not the hardcore lefties. The hardcore lefties hate him. Because he hasn't done anything that he had promised. The things that were important to them, the closing Gitmo, the stopping of the quote unquote torturing, the getting us out of the Middle East. He hasn't done any of that. Literally, he hasn't done any of that. And so the real hardcore lefties, no, they don't like him at all. In fact, I don't think they're going to vote for him. I think they're going to stay home, or they're going to do something like vote for Roseanne Barr, believe it or not, Cindy Sheehan, who's a personal hero of theirs. But the moderate liberals, the uneducated youth, and I'm not trying to be harsh by saying the uneducated, but they just haven't completed enough education, or they haven't had enough life experience education to really understand the way the world works. They still like him. They may not be overly in love with him, but they still have this. Well, no, some of them really do worship. They really think he's something special. I think it's a mental illness, and there's always going to be a certain percentage of crazy people out there. But I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting. And to get back to the Jimmy Carter thing, because I'm easily sidetracked, I'll bet you anything. I will bet you anything that they gave him a script, he videotaped it, they sent it to him. Once he sent it back to them, and the DNC. And once they looked at it, they vetted it, then they went ahead and they released this press report. a press release, saying that this was what was gonna happen. Because I can guarantee you, had that videotape came back and he started babbling some of his left-wing nut job. I mean, listen, he's a communist. The Jimmy Carter of today, the Jimmy Carter who is suffering from some kind of a dementia or some kind of Alzheimer's, some kind of a mental disorder, he is a communist. That Jimmy Carter is a communist. Not the Jimmy Carter that was president. I don't believe that. Probably not even the Jimmy Carter that survived, say, 10 years after his presidency, or maybe even 15 or 20 years after his presidency. But the Jimmy Carter today, the one that hangs out with the Castro brothers, the one that hangs out with Chavez in Venezuela, and people like associates with people like Sean Penn, noted communist, that Jimmy Carter's a communist. That Jimmy Carter needs to be taken off the public stage. As far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, consider that for what it is. Take that for what it is. Anyway, I'm not going to continue to ramble on about this. I just found it to be interesting. I know that some of you will want to chime in on this. And while I'm at it, I'd probably make a video about this. What do you think of Sean Penn down there campaigning for Hugo Chavez? So, shockingly, Carter isn't there right now. Maybe he isn't well. I mean, physically, or maybe they are starting to take him off the public stage, and maybe they are starting to handle his, his affairs. I have no idea. But anyway, what do you think in the comment section about Sean Penn down there hanging with Chavez and actively campaigning for a communist? I find that very, very intriguing. He is a private citizen, and he's welcome to do that. If he wants to embrace communism, that's his business. I think I think he's a piece of shit, but that's my call. That's my opinion. I won't watch Sean Penn's movies. Well, and I'd like to say that is a political statement on my part. But the truth is, he hasn't made a decent movie since Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. He's box office poison. I am shocked that anybody even gives him scripts to read. It just amazes me. Every now and again they give him a hardcore left-wing anti-death penalty or some bullshit movie like that, and they do their utmost to try to give him Academy Awards and things like that. But let's be honest. The last good role he had was Spicoli. I didn't know this, by the way. I just read this today, that Sean Penn's father was a noted communist. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Anyway, everybody take care. See ya!